Today we're talking about planning for disaster. Oh boy. Hey, there's this Tom with Tom Tech Show, and we all have our, should have at any rate, uh, our backup process, what we're going to do to recover from that backup, something that's versioning our data and stuff. So if we get malware or ransomware, something like that, we can be able to recover. But in business sense, sometimes we want to be able to, we have a complete hardware failure, or, every server in your lab or your infrastructure has been just chewed up by malware, ransomware, something like that. We want to be able to just, instead of trying to get all that back up and restored, we want to be able to just everybody point to this site. It's a disaster recovery site, points everybody to a different site, and lets everybody continue to work. So I have a plan here that this is a proposal. So you need to start with the first thing you do is start with the proposal for what you want to do. And that's going to give you effectively what it's going to cost you, what's going to, run you a month. And then you can weigh that against man hours and lost time and everything else, and have cats come up and need to be up here with you, moving everything around. Thank you, cat. That's Bones, by the way, who is not Skin and Bones, but it's named after, yes, a Star Trek character. There we go. Okay, so our plan here that we've drawn up here is you have to define a few things, right? We have to know some things called RPO and RTO, and we define those here. The recovery time is, of course, how long it's going to take to get everything back up and running. Ideally, without too much of cost in a business sense, that's going to be about 24 hours. Of course, it's exponential. The less your recovery time, it's like inverse. The less your recovery time, the more exponential your cost goes up. So if you wanted to truly be, we are a huge, a minute by minute business site, and you're shipping, SQL logs off to a different site, and you need, data throughput to be able to send those logs and restore them on the backup SQL server and stuff. That's going to cost more potentially than just saying, okay, we're moving all of our data and we're going to recover within 24 hours. There may be some time to get everything back up and running and get everybody connected, and that's what a 24-hour thing would be, and that's going to cost a little less. Maybe you're going to have more man hours afterwards. So it's definitely a balance, right? So that's the RP or RTO, recovery time objective. Then there's the other RPO, which is a recovery point objective. So how far back in the past are we restoring to? So we're writing data, and writing data, backing it up, write data, back it up, write data, back it up. How long from the last backup and shipped off site is that data that we can recover to that point? So as data moves along, then we're going to jump, we're backing things up where we may be 5 or 10 minutes ahead, or even 24 hours ahead, depending on what your latency and distance is up to, your disaster recovery site. If you're trying to move a lot of data off, so you can just do kind of a whole blanket recovery, that might be, 2 or 3 days. If your data doesn't move that much, then maybe that would be something you could do. If you move the whole site and then you have SQL data that you need moved, so then you continually trickle the SQL data over, and then once a week or once a month, you transport the whole environment and refresh the environment at the DR site. So there's a few different things that we can do. So maybe there'll be 2 different recovery points, right? The main infrastructure of all servers and everything might be a week old, but the SQL data will be, a few minutes old, or an hour old, something like that. So you would have to know that, okay, if we're doing the whole infrastructure once a week and somebody changes their password that week, they may have to go back to their old password and then change it again when they get to the DR site. They may be at the previous password. Different things you have to take into account when we're doing this kind of stuff. Okay. So, and it's all limited by what your internet connectivity is. So one plan that we have here, we have a lab of VM servers, and we're going to use Veeam backup, and we're going to put that onto a Synology NAS. And Synology NAS has the ability to take snapshots and transport them to another Synology NAS offsite, and that's kind of what we're doing. What this proposal is setting up to do. Once it's on the other Synology NAS, then we use a script in Veeam to restore the lab in a new VM infrastructure. So when I kind of step by step go through the process, just a basic overview of the process, because this is just a proposal, this isn't the nitty gritty. So like we got to start at a proposal, because basically this proposal then heads to executives and everything else for approval, and then once it's approved, then your work really starts. Okay, so down here there's some hardware and software requirements that I've set up for this site. So cost is generated into two different categories. One is Capex, one is Opex, and that's just simply capital expenditures, things we got to buy right now to get everything running. And Opex is operational expenses, is what is this going to continually cost us every month? Because it does take cost to keep the disaster recovery site going. Okay, so I've sketched out 3 Dell servers, a VMware Essentials kit, which is kind of nice. It gives you 3 servers, a virtual center, ability to vMotion and things like that. Network gear switch, one of the higher performance Synology NAS with 10 gig network connections for storage, some drives, Cisco ASA security router, some switchable PDUs, because this is going to be remote, right? This is going to be a disaster recovery. You're not going to be there. It's going to be in a co-location facility that's under basically blackout conditions. You're not going to be able to walk in there. So we need to be able to maybe cycle power on systems every once in a while. If something gets stuck, you're trying to fix something, switchable PDU makes that possible. KVM over IP switch, so you can look at consoles of all the systems, and some miscellaneous, cables, screws, everything else. So recovery site, we're estimating the hardware cost up front for all of this is $37,000, which is not horrible, but it's doable. Then we're going to look at operational expenses. What's going to cost every month? So vendor that I go through for Colo rack space this is their pricing that I have. So it's $385 a month for the half rack space. A redundant power is $465 a month for the power. Internet connection is 200 meg is about $400 a month. That's symmetric, up and down 200 meg. And that's that we can go up and down on that as needed. We got VMware support and Cisco support for the router and VMware. So we're looking at about $1,550 or so a month. And then in our current lab, so in our current infrastructure, I definitely recommend getting a dedicated internet line for sending the data. Because if you're trying to, push a lot of data across this wire and you have users coming into the system trying to do things, they're, using a VPN to get in and work on things, or you have web services that are working, and you're trying to run your full data, your backup directly across that same wire as the users are going into, then that's going to bog your users down, and you don't want to do that. So we have a second 200 meg Frontier fiber connection, another Cisco ASA, and the support for that ASA. So with this setup and about the 200 meg, if we wanted to, if once we realize how fast things are transferring, if we need to go faster, then we can raise that if we need to get data over there a little bit faster. So that's going to give me a return to operation in about 24 hours. I should be able to, if the main lab area goes down, all the main servers go down, I should have everything, should be restored, and I should be able to bring everything back up, start everything back up, get all my users connected and stuff at the location backup site within 24 hours. I mean, it's going to be, probably be a hard 24 hours. Some of these things are, really hard on your personnel, right? I mean, trying to get things back up and running, get users back into things could mean, somebody's up for 12, 14 hours trying to get things done. We actually had one situation where we were trying to get things back up, and the company sent several of us to the location and got a hotel. So we were switching off. Somebody would go to the hotel and sleep for 8 hours and then come back, and then the other person would go to the hotel and sleep for so many hours while the other person is working. So that you can also build kind of that into your disaster recovery. What's the travel cost? If somebody has to travel there and be able to do and work on something to get things back up, what's that cost? If you're still able to do everything remotely, which is what this is, lights out. I used to tell my guys that I was working with, I said, I would ask them, okay, that's the server room over there. Every time you walk through that door, figure out why you're walking through the door and find a way so you don't have to walk through the door. And then in that mindset, you're building that to eventually create something lights out that you don't have to go in there anymore and everything's done remotely. And that leads you to being able to do that and build that in your disaster recovery site. Okay, so this plan's pretty good. I'm submitting this probably in the next week or so. I might be do a little bit more tweaking here and there. But hopefully this will get, approved by powers that be at my regular day job. And then we'll be able to put this in place and be able to set this up to run. All right. Well, that's kind of my DR stuff that I'm working on, my project that I'm working on, one of them. So if you got any questions about your DR process, your DR program, what you're doing, just comment down below. We can talk about it and maybe get some hints back and forth to each other for what we need to do, and something that might help you out. All right. So remember to like, share, subscribe to all your favorite YouTube creators so that we can, build our, community of small creators and keep this thing going for the small creator. All right. Well, thanks for watching. Take care.